Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. I'm Shelley Pruitt, and my partners in the paranormal and co-host. Suddenly, I can't talk. Let's try that again. My partners in the paranormal, Mr. Blake Smith and Mr. Ryan Roberts. Wow, guys, apparently I'm being affected already.
Let's get through that intro. Yay!
Gosh, I'm so sorry. Suddenly, it was like I got tongue-tied and. Anyway, it's all good. I've had allergy medicine. Bear with me. You know, it's like I've been on no sleep and bourbon, except I've actually had sleep. So, anyway. So, how you guys doing tonight?
Good. I am excited to get into the whole Loch Ness monster thing because it was one of those ones that fascinated me when I was a kid. And I read pretty much everything I could get my hands on when I was little about it. So, I'm excited to see.
Guy.
Oh, yeah. I love all the cryptids, and I'm excited to see what you found on the Loch Ness Monster. So
it's I dug deep.
It's fascinated me as well because I always wonder what happened to my pet goldfish when I flushed him down the toilet. So I'm excited to learn what happened to him. Poor Petey. Poor guy.
Or Nessie. Is it Nessie?
Who knows? You never know.
Who knows?
He could be living in Loch Ness right now. We have no idea. No idea. But no, I'm fascinated. Fascinated to hear what you have found out because like Ryan, this is another one this is huge. This is a big one. I know it's extremely controversial within the paranormal world. So I'm excited to hear all the facts that you find out, the stories, and to hear y'all's thoughts on this at the end. So
absolutely. And like I said, Loch Ness is one that's always been fascinating to me as well. And whenever I was like, what am I going to do? I thought, yeah, let's talk about Nessie. And so I guess we'll just jump right into it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Loch Ness monster. So if you guys are ready, we're going to move forward. So here we go. For at least 1,500 years, the Scottish Highlands have been home to one of the world's most mysterious myths. I am tongue-tied and I apologize.
It's okay. You're human. It's all good.
Oh, yeah.
I know. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of lake monsters around the world, but the one superstar marine denizen that outshines them all is Nessie. The beast is said to inhabit Scotland's Loch Ness. Some say it's a myth, but others say it's a living dinosaur or even a sea serpent that swam into the lake before it became landlocked. The Loch Ness monster has always enchanted people's imaginations, and whether real or fictional, it is what Scotland is best known for around the world. Well, aside from whiskey and bagpipes and kilts, I'm not best known right up there.
Hey now, you're hating on about not hating. You're talking about 30% of what makes me. So you're talking about my homeland here.
Hey, it's all right. So the size of the loch makes the alleged sightings of the creature more common and more believable. Loch Ness is actually a tectonic lake, and it's one of 4 lakes along the Great Glen Fault Line. The stunning valley was formed by glaciers during the last ice age over 430 million years ago. The Great Glen Fault Line is more than 62 miles long, and it runs through Scotland from Fort William to Inverness. I knew I was going to say that wrong. Blake,
Inverness. Inverness. You didn't give me a chance to correct you. Sorry, Inverness. I'm sorry. I failed you.
I have a lot of anxiety about some of these words tonight.
Inverness.
There you go. Inverness, yes. The loch is the largest body of fresh water in the UK because it is so deep. It holds more water than all the other rivers and lakes in England and Wales combined. It's the second largest lake by surface area in all of Scotland. It's roughly 23 miles long, 1 mile wide, and over 800 feet deep in some spots.
Damn. Holy shit.
It's really deep. And it's so deep that Loch Ness never freezes over, even in the harshest of Scottish winters. And the reason for this is what's known as a thermocline effect. The water from the cold air will sink to the bottom and be replaced by the warmer water that's rising. And the lower levels of the loch stay at a roughly 44 degrees Fahrenheit year round. So it never freezes over. You have this constant circle of, cold water falling, warm water rising, so it does not freeze.
Man, that is some shrinkage if you get down there.
Well, and if if you try to swim in the lake, they highly discourage this because you could get hypothermia very quickly in that cold water. The
Because
surface area of the
Nessie's
water,
in there.
Well,
Yeah.
you could run across the
You
lake monster too.
don't
But
swim there because there's Nessie. Nessie will eat you.
I mean, you get major shrinkage, you get hypothermia, then you get eaten by Nessie. That's just not
Exactly.
it's not a fun afternoon.
No.
probably not something you want to do.
No.
So this freshwater loch might look clear and inviting, but the blue surface is just a cover for very cold, deep, and murky waters below. And the water is so dark, it absorbs all the light, making any kind of visibility underwater extremely low. And that's because it kind of has this high peat moss content to it. So any kind of light that passes down just even slightly, it's quickly absorbed. So visibility is like zero in this loch. And cool little side note, you can actually see Loch Ness from space. They have satellite images, and Loch Ness is actually visible from space. So that's kind of cool. You know me.
Oh no.
She got
Nessie got her. That's what happened.
Nessie took her.
Am I back? Am I back?
You're back. You're back.
Okay.
Nessie
perfect.
said, "Stop telling my damn secrets."
I know. So Loch Ness occupies a central role in the Scottish folklore and is associated with various mythical animals. Among them are so-called water horses, also known as a water kelpie. And these spirits would haunt areas of the water. And in around the 1800s, there were tales of kelpie that haunted the shores of Loch Ness. And despite their beauty, these kelpies could be pretty wicked. One version of the kelpie myth states that the magical creatures lure small children into the water by offering them rides on their backs. But once the children hop aboard, they meet a terrible fate. Their little hands get stuck to the water horse, and they're dragged underwater to their death with no trace left behind except for their livers that eventually wash up on the shore the next day. Is that not morbid?
Dude, the freaking Scottish have the most morbid lore and legend. Like, what the hell?
It's like the stranger's van became sentient. And it's like, hey, kid, you want to ride?
You weirdo.
So is it are they like related to like fairy lore? Is that like
I don't know. It's not about kelpie.
Like...
We're talking about Loch Ness monster. I'm just
the question in the comments I want to know too. Why specifically the liver though? Like what? Maybe there's no. That's kid. I was gonna say maybe there's.
I couldn't find that.
Well, I was gonna say maybe there's. I was gonna say maybe they're Scottish. Maybe it's just too much liquor in it, but that's a kid. I mean, I don't know what their laws are over there. I mean, do the kids drink? Never mind. We're going down a bad rabbit hole.
I don't know. I'm with them. I don't like liver either. Leave that stuff to the side.
Okay.
But
often
the first
found with onions floating on the water.
So the first mentions of a Nessie-like figure in Scotland date back from antiquity, basically back to the 1st century AD. The Roman Empire was attempting to conquer the lands north of England, but they came across resistance from a group that was known as the Picts, P-I-C-T-S. And this is a group of Celtic-speaking people that painted their bodies with dye. And the name derives from the Latin word picti, which means painted. So they called them the Pict, I guess,
painted people.
Tribe. Yeah, the native people were called the Picts.
Okay.
And besides being renowned as fierce warriors, the Picts left behind intriguing carved standing stones. And they were fascinated by animals, and they were very careful to render them accurately. All the various animals depicted on these stones were native to Scotland, and all were very lifelike and easily recognizable, except for one. One animal depicted is a strange creature with an elongated beak and what looks like flippers instead of feet. And some scholars think it resembles a swimming elephant. But some think these ancient depictions of a mysterious aquatic animal might be the actual first evidence of Nessie.
Look, it looks like a flying elephant to me.
Yeah.
It looks like a dog got hit on the highway by me. So.
Oh, Shelly,
So
you went
like
there, damn it.
That's what it looks like to me. But, I mean, I'm going to take their word for it.
Looks like a aardvark elf.
Well, when people are like, "Hey, when pigs fly, that'll happen." Look, there's your proof, guys. I mean, right there.
There you go.
Has a trunk too.
So
Maybe,
this
never
ancient
mind.
people
Horrible.
depicted something that did not look like anything else that was recognizable in Scotland. So the first literary mention of this beast, kind of hanging out in Loch Ness, is in 565 AD. And it is mentioned in the biography of St. Columba. And according to Catholic text, St. Columba was returning from a visit where he had gone to meet the Pict king. And he'd gone there to spread some Christianity, to, kind of curtail the heathens and that kind of thing, going to make them good, God-fearing citizens. And whenever he arrived at a crossing point at the River Ness, he saw a group of people that were digging a grave. So St. Columba, he walked over and he asked, how had the man died? And he was told that the man had been killed by a monster who lived in the loch. St. Columba was intrigued, but not worried, because he told one of his monks to go swim across the loch and fetch that boat that was bobbing on the opposite side of the bank so they could go across.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you, dude.
Now this monk, he was a sturdy fella. And so he dutifully leapt into the water and he began to swim towards the boat. And about halfway across, the monster appeared. But St. Columba, with the power of God behind him, he was not afraid. Maybe because it was his ass that went in the water.
Okay. No shit.
But St. Columba's biographer wrote, sorry, I got tickled. The blessed man raised his holy hand while the rest were stupefied with terror. And he commanded the monster, saying, thou shalt go no further, nor touch the man. Go back with all speed. And just for good measure, St. Columba made the sign of the cross. Well, let me tell you, that terrible beast had enough, and he fled back into the depths of the dark water, and the man's life was saved. Thank you, St. Columba.
Fuck.
You shall not pass.
That's all I can hear in my head. You shall not pass. Yes. I'm like, that's all I could hear. Perfect setting too for this. I mean, come on, we're in Scotland. I mean, it's beautiful. Very
exactly
Middle Earth looky. I don't know.
Exactly. So apparently, this is like the very first account of a written account of a loch monster. Loch means like in Scottish, so of a lake monster. So
see, that's my thing, is because even people who were trying to investigate the unknown or the paranormal were trying to trick people even that far back. I'm like, anybody looks at me and go, oh, just go down this dark hallway. I know it's a demonic haunting, but it's okay. Just go down there by yourself, just for a second. No, that's the same shit that fool was doing at Loch Ness. It's like, oh, just swim across and get the boat. This man back here, he just died from, a monster, but it's okay. Go ahead.
It's all good.
You'll be fine.
No.
Here, take this pool noodle.
So, however, the legend of the beast, it didn't really start to gain international attention until hundreds of years later in a 1933 sighting. And the modern legend of the Loch Ness Monster began on May 2nd of 1933. A woman named Aldi McKay reported seeing something that looked like a whale in the water of Loch Ness. And she described it as an enormous animal that was rolling and plunging on the surface. And the Inverness Courier, got it right that time, reported the story under the headline, Strange Spectacle on Loch Ness. And at the suggestion of the editor, the beast was described as a monster. And the legend was born. And soon after, go ahead, what does it say?
The comment says, "'Tis just a flesh wound." Sorry, had to throw that in.
So soon after, another couple, Mr. and Miss Spicer, they decided they'd take a drive on the newly completed road that ran adjacent to Loch Ness. And this new roadway gave onlookers a scenic and unobstructed, again, I'm having a problem with words tonight, unobstructed view of the lake. Allegedly, an enormous animal suddenly crossed in front of their car and then disappeared into the water. They said it was large and gray and it had a long trunk. And they watched it move away in horror and fright. And they compared it to like a dragon or a prehistoric monster. And the plants and vegetation that were in its way was reportedly flattened as if a very large body had passed over them.
Holy
Motherfuckers
shit.
ain't ever seen an elephant. I'm
That's
sorry. Large gray with a trunk, plants and vegetation's flattened
Right.
in front of it like a large body. Come on.
But
like,
here's the thing: they would have known what an elephant looked like because there were plenty of
You don't
circuses
know
and carnivals
that.
and stuff that came through. They described it as like a dragon.
Honey, would you look at that fucking dragon going across the wall?
we just got canceled in Scotland. Oh man.
Oh, George been drinking a little too much.
Wait, okay, so now we're to the point of it out of water.
Yes.
So this thing is out of water.
Now the Spicers saw it lumber across the road in front of them, in front of their car. So obviously it don't adhere to
And you said
stuff and stuff like that.
It was adjacent to the lake, like it didn't go over the lake. It was along the shore. So
no, it crossed the road and went down into the water.
No,
and
that's what I'm saying.
the
The road is adjacent to the lake, is what I'm saying. Okay.
I mean, I guess it makes sense because Scotland's not going to have elephants. I mean, let's be honest. But
no,
I've never heard of it out of water.
Yeah, because
interesting.
Well, then let you hear about another account.
Okay.
Which said not long after the Spicer sighting, a veterinarian student named Arthur Grant almost crashed into the creature on his motorbike. He was traveling from Inverness, and the creature came across his path on the road. And Mr. Grant described the animal as having a large body, long neck, a small head, flippers, and a very long tail. And it quickly hurried across the road and went back down into the water. It was apparently frightened by the motorbike. And he said it was unlike anything he'd ever seen before.
Huh.
Two accounts.
Yeah,
I've never... it going across a road on land. I've never heard of a tale of Loch Ness monster on land before. That's interesting.
Well, if you think about it, animals with flippers can come out of the water. Think about seals. So why not Nessie?
I don't know. I just always assumed Nessie was like waterlogged or something. I mean, I guess it never has crossed my mind to think, can Nessie get out of the water? I guess Nessie could if Nessie wanted to.
Well, let me continue then and let's see if I can answer some questions for you.
Okay.
So by October, London newspapers had sent reporters to Scotland to investigate these sightings, and radio programs were being interrupted to bring listeners the latest news from the loch. And a British circus actually offered a reward of £20,000 for the capture of the beast, no doubt because they wanted to put it in their exhibit. And hundreds of Boy Scouts, outdoorsmen, and adventurers arrived in droves, whatever. Y'all, if I would just put on my glasses, I would actually be able to read my writing.
I see them hanging, just.
I don't know.
Sorry.
I'm too vain to wear my glasses. Y'all leave me alone. Now, some of these people that showed up, they ventured out onto the water in small boats for an up-close look, and others just sat up deck chairs on the shore and waited expectantly for the monster to appear. And the London Daily Mail newspaper was fascinated by these reports. In December of 1933, monster mania hit a fevered pitch when the paper hired actor, film director, and renowned big game hunter Marmaduke Wetherell to track down the Loch Ness monster.
Of course his name is Marmaduke.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
He looks like he's got some stories.
Oh, Lord.
He looks like a character with his pet friend monkey.
Yes, Marmaduke Wetherell, he accepted the challenge with much pomp and circumstance, and he began his quest for the creature. And oh, what luck! Just a few days after he began his search, along the shore of the lake, he reported that he had found fresh footprints. The footprints, he ascertained, belonged to a very powerful, soft-footed animal, about 20 feet in length, and the prints were very large and were made by a four-toed animal. And with great fanfare, Wetherell made a cast of the tracks and sent them off to the Natural History Museum in London for analysis just before Christmas. He was confident that the scientist would confirm that the tracks were made by Nessie herself. And the world waited for the museum zoologist to return from the holiday.
It's rather convenient that Marmalade Merriweather, or whatever his name was,
Marmaduke Wetherall
found those prints. He himself just happened to find those prints within 4 days of being there.
He was hired to find him, and by God,
wait.
No.
Okay, hold on. Wait. Nessie has toes. Nessie has.
I don't know.
She
I've never
can
seen her.
wait. Is she a she or he? I don't know. She has feet.
I don't know.
I thought she had flip. I'm so
Say
confused.
the both previous reports said that it had flippers.
Correct.
Both previous reports. So maybe
both previous reports.
both previous. That's what I said.
My inability to speak is contagious this evening.
I said Marmaduke whatever his name was,
Wetherall
should have done his research, because if he had, he would have known that the two previous sightings had flippers. So I don't know.
He found prints.
Okay, hold on.
Marmaduke's claims are a little dubious. I don't know.
You said the first red flag, one word out of your mouth, was they hired actor.
That's one who's going to get that.
Bullshit.
Actor, film director,
Uh-huh.
and self-stylized big game hunter.
Exactly.
Well, let me tell you what the zoologists found.
Okay.
So while they waited, the Daily Mail quickly published the story about the footprints, running the dramatic headline, "The monster of Loch Ness is not legend, but a fact." And it got people's attention. Legions of monster hunters descended on Loch Ness, and they filled all the local hotels and jammed up traffic on the shoreline roads in both directions. They were all hoping to catch a glimpse of this mythical beast. But in January, the analysis from the Natural History Museum was completed, and the results were in. The zoologists determined that the footprints were made by a hippopotamus.
Wait,
fucking what?
Scotland has hippopotamuses?
Quick little side note, hippos are not native to Scotland and definitely not roaming through the wilds of the Scottish Highlands.
No, I think.
Okay.
I think.
Marmaduke, you were about to blow my mind. I was like, wait a minute.
I was going to say, I think, if Marmaduke himself is a quote unquote big game hunter, something tells me he has access to something to make exotic animal tracks.
Oh, well, of course. Yeah, of course.
So I think that thinks that might be what it is.
As we know, go ahead.
I was gonna say, all I saw in my head was when Shelley was like, all these people, showed up in droves, like, to the village. Is this mad little Scottish man, like, get out of? I can't do a Scottish accent, but
get
like,
out of my way.
Get off my lock is what you say.
Get off my lock.
Get off my lock! I'm trying to see this fucking monster.
Jesus Christ! Oh man.
So. Anyway, so as we know now, because if you didn't know, you do, that hippos are not native to Scotland and they don't roam the Highlands.
Phew, I thought school education had failed me for a minute.
Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
So there you go. So the scientists, they were even able to determine that the depth of these casts and the depth of the footprints, they weren't correct for such a massive animal. And it was also determined that each of the plaster casts of the prints were identical. Nothing different in any of them. So most likely, they determined the prints had been made with a perhaps stuffed hippo foot, or so it was either one that had been either taxidermized, or it could have been part of the base of an umbrella stand or an ashtray, because those were kind of the rage back then to have like this, you usually seen these footed umbrella stands with like these feet on them.
Yeah.
The feet that were being used on them at the time that were very popular looked like hippo feet. So it's unclear now if Marmaduke Wetherall was the perpetrator of the hoax or just kind of a gullible victim. But either way, his credibility was shot, and he was a laughingstock. And Weatherall slinked back to London in disgrace. But the Daily Mail profited either way.
Lord, the Daily Mail.
Ooh. Yes. So, I mean, I don't
Sounds
know.
like a pretty damn big perpetrator to me. He's perpetrating. He's perpetrating the lie of this hoax, if it that or the lie of the hoax of it.
I mean, what if somebody snuck out there and
I
said,
don't know what I'm
haha,
trying
they
to
got
say.
this dude who thinks he's a big deal. I'm going to stamp some prints in the sand and see if he finds them.
Well,
It's plausible.
he's a big game hunter. Something
Yes, he
tells me
is.
he's probably hunted hippopotamus or
A
hippopotami, whatever it is.
self-stylized big game hunter. Okay.
And so, but if that's the case, he would know what those tracks were. I think
Should. Maybe he had never hunted hippopotamus.
Hippopotami-
Hippopotamuses.
I don't know. I'm so damn lost on what fucking Nessie looks like at this point. I'm picturing like Snuffleupagus at this point or something. I have no idea.
Well, let me see if I can pull us back on track here.
Okay.
So whenever he went back to London, yes, it was an embarrassment for Witherall. And this incident kind of tainted the idea of the Loch Ness monster, and it discouraged any kind of serious investigation of the phenomenon. And for the next 3 decades, no serious scientist would dare to research any strange activity in the lake, at least not any that was linked to Nessie. And the scientific community, they would only occasionally go on record to scornfully dismiss the reports of sightings. They wouldn't go so far as to say that they were all hoaxes, but most scientists were of the opinion that anything that was seen was most likely the result of optical illusions, or they were caused by boat wakes, or wind slicks, or floating logs, or otters, or ducks, or swimming deer, or any other thing you can think of other than a monster. But I'm going to tell you that the hunt wasn't over. Believers were determined to prove the monster's existence. And in early 1934, there was another photo, and it stood above the rest. The photograph appeared to show Nessie's head and neck rising from the surface of the water. And this now iconic image is known as the surgeon's photograph. And the photo caused many to speculate that the creature was a plesiosaur, which is a long-necked seafaring reptile that supposedly went extinct 65.5 million years ago. And the picture was reportedly snapped by Dr. Colonel Robert Kenneth Wilson, a respected London surgeon and gynecologist who was driving along the loch on his way to visit his friend Maurice Chambers. See, they had plans to go bird watching that day. And as he's driving, his traveling companion at the time glanced down at the water and shouted, "My God, it's the monster." But the Colonel Doctor was kind of cagey about the sighting. And up until his death in 1969, he claimed only to have seen something in the water. But regardless, from the moment the photo was published in the London Daily Mail, it became the visual representation of the Loch Ness monster, and for many, the strongest evidence that Nessie actually exists. So y'all have seen the surgeon's photo, correct?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Everybody,
yeah,
I think,
of course.
has.
I think everybody has seen that.
Mhm.
I love this guy's accolades. I mean, just monster hunter, colonel, gynecologist.
Now, this is the surgeon. The surgeon is Dr. Colonel Robert Kenneth Wilson. This is the man who, now you don't be thinking about Marmaduke Weatherall. He's the big game hunter.
No, I'm just saying it's like doctor, colonel, gynecologist. Like,
well, now I say
so
it,
random
he's
throwing
a
this shit
surgeon
out
and
there.
Gynecologist.
I got it.
No,
Yeah.
More power to you, boy.
A
go for
true
it.
Renaissance man.
Yes. Well, here's the thing. Whenever I was researching, I found him listed as Colonel Robert Kenneth Wilson.
Mhm.
I saw him listed as Dr. Robert Kenneth Wilson. When I went to dig, he actually had military service and was a colonel, and he also was a doctor. So I was like, let's give him all of his props. He earned them. So
Dr.
yes,
Colonel.
Dr. Colonel. So after all of this, and now people, they were all in. They see this photo of
Mhm.
this surgeon's photograph that literally looks like something is sticking its head up out of the water.
Right.
And after that, the sightings just continued. And in the spring of 1938, a tourist named G.E. Taylor filmed something in the lake for 3 minutes on 16 millimeter color film, and it was moving through the lake. However, when experts kind of got a look at it, they concluded that it was most likely just a floating object. Maybe, maybe not.
Mhm.
Because in July of 1955, Peter McNabb took a photograph that depicted two long black humps in the water. But of course, researchers suspected that the humps could be a wave effect resulting from three fishing boats that were traveling too closely together. Again, science is not having any of these sightings. They are trying to dismiss them at every turn. And in the 1950s, a doctor named Constance White began collecting eyewitness accounts along with sketches of what people had seen in the loch. And in 1957, she published them in a book entitled More Than a Legend. And many of her friends had been subjected to ridicule and contempt whenever they told their stories. And White said that her goal was, in writing the book, to vindicate the many people of integrity who had honestly reported what they'd seen in Loch Ness, but weren't taken seriously. So this was kind of her way of saying, look, these are good people. They're not lying. They believe everything you're saying. So she wrote a book about it. And White's book inspired a new generation of monster hunter. But perhaps the most important effect of White's book was to turn the tide of public opinion about Nessie. And now Nessie was finally being considered a subject worthy of serious scientific investigation. And in the span of a decade, beginning in 1958, 4 separate expeditions were launched, first by the BBC and then by Oxford, Cambridge, and the University of Birmingham. So very well-known, very reputable schools launching investigations into this mystery. And in 1960, aeronautical engineer Tim Dinsdale, I always want to say that wrong, Dinsdale, was on his first visit to Loch Ness. And like most, he came for the monster. And as he panned his camera across the water, he captured something moving across the loch. And the footage showed a hump that left a wake as it crossed the water. And he was so fascinated by the footage that he gave up his career as an aeronautical engineer and devoted his life to pursuing the monster. Many said that the hump in Dinsdale, he gave it all up.
He's a true believer.
Yes, he was convinced just based on what he'd captured. And many said that the hump in Dinsdale's 40 feet of film, and that's all it was 40 feet of film. A lot of them said, it's just a boat. But in 1993, Discovery Communications produced a documentary called Loch Ness Discovered. And they digitally enhanced the Dinsdale film. And in this enhanced film, it showed a shadow in the negative, which was not obvious in the developed film. And by enhancing the overlay and overlaying the frames, they found what appeared to be the rear body of an actual creature. So this is an actual science looking into it, and they've seen something that now they're interested in. Now, in 1962, a group of dedicated amateurs formed the Loch Ness Investigation Bureau. Cheesy name, but they did some good work. And this group kept a constant visual on the loch for, and they had this like little outpost that they had set up, and they watched the loch from the northern shore. And they did this for a 10-year observational study. 10 years. They watched this loch every day. And they actually recorded an average of 20 sightings of strange things on the lake every year. Every year. So, they were keeping an eye. They were keeping their tabs. They were doing what they should have been doing. But when the investigation concluded in 1972, they actually had failed to obtain any conclusive evidence. as to the existence of Nessie. Lots of weird things going on, but never got that little, that linchpin, the thing that tied everything together that
Yeah,
proved it to be so.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in 1970, the Academy of Applied Science, whose members had ties to MIT. Sorry, I'm very tongue tied. There's a lot of
There's a lot of
academies
alphabets.
and science work. Yes,
Alphabet
agencies. Yes, the Academy of Applied Science, whose members had ties to MIT, sponsored a series of explorations in the loch using sonar and underwater photography for the first time. The team was led by a lawyer that was trained in physics, and his name was Robert Rhines. They pointed a very sophisticated form of sonar called a side scan sonar out into the loch. And nearby, they placed an underwater camera that took pictures every 45 seconds with a strobe light illuminating the dark water. And one night in 1975, the system paid off. At the same moment, the sonar was registering a large moving object. The underwater camera captured a picture of what looked like flippers of an aquatic creature. And this discovery won Rhines the support of two very reputable scientists, Harold Egerton, which was the inventor of the side scan sonar and strobe light photography, and Sir Peter Scott, one of Britain's most respected naturalists. And with the endorsement of these prominent scientists, Rhines was afforded an opportunity to present his evidence at the House of Commons in London. Never had the possibility of a Loch Ness monster been taken so seriously. So yeah, he catches this weird thing, just happens to coincide with the sonar. It's caught on camera. Some very large looking thing passes by and boom, that's what they've got. But that's all they've got is a flipper.
A possible flipper.
Possibly.
We don't know what that is.
We're not even 100% on it. A possible flipper.
A possible flipper. But it was enough to get other scientists going, hey, wait a minute, that looks credible.
There could be something to this, yeah.
Yes. But of course, almost immediately, critics began to raise questions. Could it be human error that caught the photo? Had the photo been altered? But even more damaging was scientist Peter Scott's bold declaration that, based on the photos, Nessie was a dinosaur.
Oh, God.
Oh, my Jesus.
Specifically, he said a plesiosaur. Remember,
How not to be taken seriously in
they went extinct 65.5 million years ago.
Yeah.
What do we call that today, kids? Canceled. You were canceled so quick. You're done.
There would have to be a population of plesiosaur in order for this thing to have still been around. Pretty sure people would notice a population of plesiosaur in Loch Ness at some point.
Well, I'm going to tell you that this idea really was just too far-fetched for professional zoologists. And however, just as in 1972, the British Museum actually acknowledged that the new pictures were entirely authentic, but concluded that they did not constitute acceptable evidence of the existence of an unidentified species in Loch Ness. But just in case the animal in the loch was proven to be legitimate, it was given a name so that it could be added to Britain's schedule of officially protected wildlife. And the naming rights went to Sir Peter Scott, who dubbed the monster Nessie rhomboteryx. Look at me getting that shit right.
She can't say MIT, but she's got that down pat, ladies and
you know how
gentlemen.
many times I practiced that? So, the name translated from Greek means the wonder of Ness with the diamond-shaped fin. And that, of course, is in reference to the flipper that was in Dr. Rhines' photo in 1972. But conspiracy theorists, they always love to have a little fun.
Oh, yeah.
So they took the letters in Nessie rhomboteryx and they rearranged them just to see what they would get.
Oh, God.
And two phrases could be formed.
Oh, Jesus.
The first was, yes, both pigs are monsters. Are. like Robert Rhines.
Okay.
The second one that they were able to unscramble said monster hoax by Sir Peter S.
That's a reach.
I was gonna say that's a
Both of
reach. That's a
Yes.
reach.
You know what? I laid these out and I marked them off, and they actually can spell out both things using all the letters.
Yeah.
So
I don't doubt that, but the conspiracy itself is a reach. I
you
think.
know how much I love conspiracy theories. I thought that was fun.
We're gonna hide it in plain sight.
That's right.
Mwah.
Well, I'm going to tell you that the general public wasn't helping the researchers out in terms of credibility. In 1977, Sir Anthony Shields, a self-proclaimed magician and psychic, produced a photo that he alleged to be the clearest photo ever taken of the monster. He claimed that he had summoned Nessie out of the water to take this photo.
God.
Oh my God. Oh, Jesus.
Shut the fuck up.
It looks like Godzilla.
Wow,
Godzilla's
man.
like little,
Oh,
little
man.
sidekick.
This is like horrible. Like, no, this is like literally like Godzilla coming out of the water to attack the city. Like, 1960 something. Like,
this fool took a still from Jason and the Argonauts.
yo, that is the clearest photo of Nessie I have ever seen.
I agree.
That is amazing. Sold. I am done. You don't even have to go on with the story.
Wrap it up. You'll take it.
Just wrap it up. I'm done. Put a bow on it.
Jesus Christ.
Now, the skeptics, of course,
Oh,
criticize
man.
this photo for many reasons, but specifically, there are a lack of ripples that are actually around the body in the water, and obviously it's fake. And this is why it's been dubbed the Loch Ness Muppet photo, because it looks like a freaking Muppet. Looks like
Jim
somebody's
Henson
hand could
is under
be up
there.
there doing this. It's like phenomena. Phenomena.
Today's
does.
letter is the letter P, guys.
No, it's in for Nessie. Yes. So
Oh, man.
they're having all this stuff coming up when they're trying to get legitimate scientific evidence. So, nobody knows what to think about this. And although the zoologist had yet to conduct a full-scale investigation like Rhines had hoped that they were going to do, Loch Ness continued to yield intriguing sonar hits. And in 1987, Operation Deep Scan used 20 sonar-equipped boats to sweep the loch with a curtain of sound, and 3 underwater targets were returned that couldn't be explained. In 1990, the BBC's Nicholas Witchell helped to organize Project Urquhart. Got that one right, too. The first extensive study, and this was the first extensive study of the loch's biology and geology. And although they weren't looking for a monster at that time, the expedition sonar operator, he detected a large moving underwater target, and they were able to follow it for several minutes before it just disappeared. Now, in 1997, now these are big expeditions with sonar and all this other stuff, and they are actually finding things, but for all their cool things and toys, they can't seem to just get a good picture or a good lock on this where they can determine what it is for sure. So in 1997, an expedition led by Rhines, so Rhines is back. Rhines and his colleague Charles Wyckoff was featured in Nova's film about Loch Ness. And during this exploration, they detected another underwater moving target. And according to sonar expert marine biologist Arnie Carr, it appeared to be one biological in nature, and it was at least 15 feet long, which is basically about the size of a small whale. But they couldn't explain it.
Okay.
So to this day, many sonar explorations are still being undertaken in an effort to find this elusive beast, but still to no avail. And in 1994, 60 years after the surgeon's photo was published, the newspapers around the world began to report the claim that the picture might be a fake.
Dun dun dun. Where's cue the music? Cue the music. Dun dun dun. Anyways,
They were claiming that it was part of an elaborate plot to dupe the Daily Mail newspaper. And the men behind the bombshell news article were Alistair Boyd and David Martin. Boyd was a former English teacher and an avid student of Loch Ness lore. He had even had his own sighting of the large animal back in the loch in 1979. Now, David Martin was a friend of Boyd, and David Martin had randomly come across a gossip column that was published back in 1975 that claimed that the surgeon's photo was a hoax. So, of course, what's he going to do? He's going to go show it to his buddy Boyd. The article had attracted very little attention in 1975, but some of the details caught Boyd's attention. The old clipping stated that Ian Weatherall claimed that the photo was fake. Recognize that name? Ian is the son of Marmaduke Weatherall of the hippopotamus book fame.
Oh man, this just keeps getting better and better.
Now, Ian Weatherall said that the plot involved a man named Maurice Chambers, the same man that Dr. Wilson said he was driving to meet that day. Ian also mentioned that the surgeon's photograph included the scenery of Loch Ness in the background. The most familiar view of the photo shows only the head and the neck in the water that's surrounding it, but the original photo included a bit of the far shoreline in the background. And at that time, the full uncropped photo had only been published once in 1934. Boyd searched and he found that original photo. And sure enough, shoreline. Now, I know you can't see it there, but Nessie is that teeny tiny dot. But if you look in that back, there is actually shoreline in that picture. And Boyd wondered, how could Weatherall have known those details? Either he had a very long memory or he had to have taken the picture. So Boyd and Martin set out to track down Ian Weatherall. Unfortunately, the men learned that he had passed away before they began their quest for the truth. But in February of 1991, they were able to find Ian's stepbrother, Christian Sperling. Sperling was 93 years old when the pair paid him a visit. And when they asked him about the validity of the old newspaper article, Sperling got a twinkle in his eye and recounted the story, and it was quite devious. Marmaduke Weatherall was quite unhappy with the way he was treated by the Daily Mail after the hippo foot fiasco. So he set out to get his revenge on the newspaper that had ridiculed him. He enlisted the help of his son. I know the hippo foot fiasco, isn't that fun to say?
I know.
It's to make a fool out of Marmaduke. They'll pay.
Yes, exactly. So, Marmaduke Weatherall, he sets out, he's going to get revenge on this paper because it basically kind of ruined his life when they made a fool out of him. Mm-hmm. Or perhaps he made a fool out of himself. They just reported it. So he enlisted the help of his son, Ian Weatherall, into the plot. All right, he said. They want a monster, we'll give them a monster, he reportedly told 21-year-old Ian. Father and son, but mostly father, hatched a plot to dupe the London Daily Mail. And it'd have to be something big, something that the greedy newspaper wouldn't be able to ignore. Something like proof. So father and son dreamed up a monster. Ian drafted his stepbrother, Christian Sperling, to be the architect of the monster. So the trio went and purchased a toy submarine for 6 shillings, 2 shillings and 6 pence from a Woolworths in the London suburb of Richmond. Sperling then constructed a 12-inch high model made from wood putty, building the neck and head over the sub's conning tower in layers. Sperling then stabilized the top-heavy design by loading the bottom with strips of lead to make the toy sit low in the water. And it only took him 8 days to design and build. He was quite proud of that. That's like mentioned, like everywhere I found it, that when they say about him talking, he's very proud of the fact that it only took him 8 days to design it and build it.
So he basically MacGyver's,
Pretty much
a proof for the Daily
most.
Mail so that he can dupe them.
Yes. So when the monster was completed, Marmaduke and Ian drove to the loch and put the toy in the water. And they photographed it in the shallow water of a quiet bay. And they made sure to include the actual scenery of the Loch Ness in the background. However, they had to sink the toy when they heard someone walking near their position. They couldn't take a chance of getting caught with the evidence, so they sunk the thing.
Did it have a self-destruct button?
I guess. Does he not seem like some kind of weird evil villain in some kind of like crazy cartoon?
Well, his name is Marmaduke. Of course he's a weird evil villain.
Do you not love that? I love that.
Yes.
Now that they had the picture, all they needed was someone respectable to take the plates, because this isn't instant. You had to pull it out. It was on a plate. You had to take it to a chemist to be developed. Your photos were not easy to come by. So they had to take the plates to a chemist to be developed because, of course, nothing was quick or easy or instant. And to conceal his own role in the hoax, Marmaduke Wetherall persuaded Dr. Wilson, through their mutual friend Maurice Chambers, to take the photo to be developed and then to sell it to the Daily Mail as his own. Well, Dr. Colonel Wilson's credentials, those were going to give the story credibility. And the surgeon, he kind of enjoyed a good practical joke and apparently agreed to take part in the hoax just to be a good sport and get a laugh. So Wetherall gave the photo to Dr. Wilson, and the conspiracy was set in motion. The plot worked better than any of them could ever have imagined. The image had been broadcast worldwide as proof. And part of the reason the picture had such an impact on the Loch Ness legend was that it came from such a credible source. Few people believed that such a respected doctor could be a party to deception. However, the British Medical Association was not amused that the doctor was connected with this Loch Ness hysteria. And they warned Dr. Wilson that this tale was putting the medical profession under a cloud that could damage them and him professionally. So Dr. Wilson, he clammed up. And going forward, when asked about the picture, he would only imply that he could not talk about it because his companion in the car that day, she was a married woman. He'd rather be thought of as an adulterer.
Wow. Priorities, man. Choices.
Yeah, man.
Choices.
Keep the joke going.
Yeah, priorities.
I guess. So that's why he was cagey and wouldn't talk about it after that. It was the medical, the British Medical Board said, no. So he shut up. And he said, I can't talk about it because, persons with, they were married.
Wow.
Okay. So the whole murky business finally came to light because Martin and Boyd found this 19-year-old gossip column that mentioned the surgeon's photograph might be fake. Through diligent research, they managed to connect the chain of events that led from big game hunter Marmaduke Wetherall to Dr. Colonel Robert Kenneth Wilson and to the most infamous picture of the Loch Ness Monster. The researchers decided to time the release of their scoop to the 60th anniversary of the photograph. And the hoax was disclosed in the Sunday Telegraph in 1994, and the surgeon's photograph made headlines once again. The credit for unearthing the truth was given to researchers David Martin and Alistair Boyd. The monster in the photograph was bogus. In April of 2019, another expedition to the loch was undertaken by New Zealand geneticist Neil Gimmels. His goal was to do DNA testing on the water samples in Loch Ness. And he found lots of DNA in the water. Gimmels and his fellow scientists from around the world analyzed around 500 million sequences from over 250 water samples. And they didn't find any traces of shark, catfish, or sturgeon, or, critically, long dead Jurassic era dinosaurs.
Okay.
But what they did find was a significant amount of eel DNA. And this was in almost every location that was sampled. And the sheer quantity of the material suggests that there is a possibility that giant eels exist in Loch Ness. Divers have even reported that they have seen eels as thick as their legs in the loch that are up to at least 13 feet in length. Well, we've been looking for the Loch Ness monster for centuries. And even though there is no conclusive proof that the creature known affectionately as Nessie actually exists, but that doesn't stop her from making headlines every single year. She has remained popular and profitable. Nessie contributes nearly $80 million a year to Scotland's economy in the form of monster merchandise, travel, and tourism.
Damn. I didn't know
That's
it
a
was that
valuable
much.
extinct dinosaur.
Shit. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. I'd keep the lot going too if I were
Wow.
Scotland.
$80 million a year. Holy shit.
And
Now I
those
gotta
numbers
look.
are those are numbers that are based on 2019.
I'm just looking up where to get a toy submarine real quick. Hold on one second.
Yes.
So
while the surgeon's photograph hoax will take its place in the Hucksters Hall of Fame, the sleuths who unmasked it, they actually do not believe that the monster itself is a fraud. They believe that it's possible that Nessie is real. And like many, they still believe that somewhere in the waves of the massive Loch Ness, a mysterious creature lurks. No matter what it is, if there is anything at all, Nessie culture is alive and well in Loch Ness. And it doesn't seem to bother fans that there is still the question as to whether Nessie ever really existed in the first place. But if not a dinosaur, then what else could it be? What else could it be? Eels? Sharks? Swimming elephants? I mean,
that's my guess.
maybe it's been Bigfoot dressed up as a dinosaur in this costume all along.
Shit.
Might as well be at this point.
Might as well be. So, gentlemen, I did not give you every single sighting. I gave you the ones that I liked because there are over 100,000 sightings of Nessie.
Holy
Jesus
shit.
Christ.
So I picked the ones that I could find something to back up with. So, and I'm sorry, I was so tongue-tied. I think I was getting all the scientific-y words. I was going, oh, okay, that one's coming up. I gotta say it right.
I mean, she couldn't say MIT, but Necessita Roomba she got, or whatever that was.
Necessito Roomba.
Necessitaris Rhomboteryx. Mm-hmm.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, that's what I was going for.
I practiced that one so many times. I was so worried I was going to screw it up. But see, that's what it was. That was in my head, and I'm going, okay, I can't mess it up. I got to get that right when I get to it. That's an important word. Yeah, I got that one right. So let me give you a quick little side note.
Okay.
The Weatherall family actually still had in their possession a hippo foot shaped ashtray like the one alleged to have made the notorious footprints, and it's now on display in the museum at Loch Ness.
That's awesome.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
They donated it. It was actually Alistair and Boyd Alistair Boyd and Martin that found that they actually had this, and they convinced them to give it to the Loch Ness Museum. And another quick little side note. You remember the motorbike guy? Arthur Grant?
Yeah, that saw him run across the road, almost hit it.
Yes.
Okay.
Allegedly, he and Marmaduke Wetherall knew each other because in some of the photos I found, Arthur Grant and Marmaduke Wetherall are standing next to each other on the shores of Loch Ness, inspecting some debris that had washed up on the shore. So perhaps this had been something that Wetherall had been perpetrating maybe from the beginning.
How convenient.
And the other cool thing is that you can actually watch Nessie cams, which are over the Scottish Loch. You can just Google them. They come up everywhere. They're on YouTube. There's some on Google Earth. There's just go look for Nessie cams. You can find them. And you can watch different areas of Loch Ness. And who knows, maybe you'll see Nessie.
Maybe you'll be the one to prove that
That's
Nessie
right.
is real.
Or
I'm not going with
a dinosaur costume.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not going with he or she because we don't know. We don't know. Nessie has never been captured or seen. I hope that Nessie is real, that she doesn't. I'm confused. It doesn't get captured, because then we're out a really cool monster story.
Yeah,
I don't know. Anyways,
and I like this monster in particular. And of course, I think they say Nessie because it's kind of like your car. Whenever you name your car, you always give it a female's name. So I think that's kind of what they did on this. But I like the story of Nessie, even though, and man, that surge's fun. Marmaduke Wetherall, this asshole, I could not quit laughing. And I was trying to cut his story down and put it together and everything. But, oh, this dude was a damn mess. He was always into something.
The one thing I don't understand though is because he seems like, he got his satisfaction. He did. For him personally, but I wonder why he didn't come out and be like, haha, I fooled you all, and see, because it seems like he wanted to embarrass the paper, so it seems like he would have come forward and said something at some point.
And you just hit on the one problem that I have with this story. Don't you think he would have wanted to rub it in the paper's face?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is the only reason I think that perhaps Christian Sperling's story might be bullshit. Maybe Marmaduke claimed to have done that. But again, why wouldn't he rub it in their faces and go, "Hey, you know what? I just duped you." So, a lot of people believe it's a legitimate photo.
I know the surgeon's photo.
Yeah,
talking about. Yeah, no, I don't believe for a second
that
it's real. I think it is. Obviously they have posted up like how it's been faked and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. My thing with this is like, it's with a lot of the cryptids that we have. Your Bigfoot, Mothman, all the big name ones that are very well documented in sightings and all that kind of stuff. Can there be something out there that's like that? I can't rule that out, because the oceans are one of the things, and the depths of the waters and lakes and all that kind of stuff around the world are one of the things that is least discovered over the entire planet. I think there's a fact of like more surface of the moon has been discovered than the depths of the oceans have. So is there to say that something could be out there that we don't know about, that we don't have a name for yet, that we haven't discovered? There's a new species out there living. Yeah, it's totally freaking possible. Absolutely. Do I think it's a 65.5 million extinct dinosaur, million-year-old extinct dinosaur? Absolutely fucking not. I mean, I ain't stupid here, but I don't know. I'm hopeful, because I want to believe so bad that Nessie is out there, and that these people just capitalized on bullshit essentially to try and dupe a newspaper. What are you gonna say, Ryan? Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
You're fine. I'm saying if Nessie does exist, I'm with you. I want to believe. But if Nessie does in fact exist, I think, because you can't argue with the science when it came to the geneticists going and getting all these samples and matching all this DNA with these creatures in the water, I think Nessie is most likely a giant eel, if she does in fact exist. Now, granted, I'm with you too. It's such a deep lake. It's such a dark and murky lake. We haven't explored the whole thing. So could there be something lurking down there that we don't know what it is? Absolutely. But I think more than likely it's probably just a giant eel.
Well, I'll tell you is that, here's the one thing I could not find was how deep he went down to take his water samples. Because as we know, if you have dirt in a glass and you shake it, well, as it calms down, things are going to sink to the bottom. And if you only go in with an eyedropper at the top, you're not going to get all that crap that's on the bottom.
What's at the bottom? Yeah.
But two, I mean, how much we talk, like, I don't know how DNA works as far as like being in water and what you can glean from just like a regular water sample of what could be in the ecosystem.
You shit it out, man. You shit it out in the water. There's fish that poop in the water.
Well, yeah.
Here's the thing: is that you are shedding
shit
all the time. Everything is shedding. You are losing everything.
That's what I'm saying. Is like
constantly.
Even if it was, if he didn't even go to the very bottom of the lake, if he even like got it at different depths and didn't even go to the very bottom of the lake, it seems like some of that DNA shed would be in the water, and they would have found something
800 feet down.
It's still in the water. You don't know, like,
It is, but you would think that because remember, if you think of heat rising and things that are warm are being
True.
pushed up, what's going on is that cold air, that cold water is
But
coming down.
so that there's a constant movement of water. So
You're right,
they would have found something anomalous, I think, if.
But is that water moving quickly enough to pull something up from the bottom? Is it? Because if you put things in and you let them settle, you have things that do not move, and they get layer upon layer upon layer of things.
But if there is a constant movement of water, there's peat moss or whatever at the bottom, there's sediment constantly moving, it would have somehow, I would think that somehow the DNA would have shed and they would have noticed something.
What if there's only one?
Doesn't matter.
The eel DNA is so prevalent because they're everywhere in the loch.
But if there's
only one, what are the chances of catching my one damn skin cell?
I don't know. For forensics, I'm saying, but forensics works that way. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, you could be in the lake and they might be like, oh, there's, unless they take a DNA sample from you, they could be like, oh, there's chili DNA in here.
Nessie went down to the other end down in Inverness to see her cousin dead today, and you ain't looking in the right spot.
I don't know. I would think that because there's constant movement of water, there's constant movement of sediment, they would have seen something. If it, they know what is in that ecosystem, and they would have seen something anomalous if, I don't know. Like I said, it just the constant movement of water and.
They sequenced over 500 different sequences of DNA.
Mm-hmm.
They sequenced for ones that they knew.
But do you not think that they would have also made a category for things that they didn't know?
Perhaps, but if you don't know what it is, how can you say that it isn't there?
It would have been anomalous. That's what I'm saying. It would have been something that they don't know what it is, and they would have come out and said, hey, we found something. We don't know what the hell this is.
What's the point of saying I don't know what something is? For all they know, what if it's some kind of weird little, lake rat that's been extinct, and it's like, we don't know what it is. We don't be claiming it's Nessie because we don't know. We don't have enough evidence yet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They still would have said something about it, I think. I think they would have said, hey, we found, okay, here is all the DNA that we found. We know that sturgeon exist here. We know that eels exist here. We know that this, and this exists, and this is DNA we found. However, there is this one thing that we don't know what the hell this is, and we're going to put it over here in this category as unexplained. They would have had something, and they would have said something about it.
Maybe.
So.
Maybe not. That freshwater loch is fed by the ocean. So, and again, with 23 miles, things could be coming in, going through, could be being washed out. There's only one.
Could be, but I don't know of any saltwater creature that's going into fresh water and surviving in fresh water for an extended period of time. Mm. Now, they can survive in brackish water, but it's not brackish water. It's fresh water. So, is it possible? Yeah, something, I guess, if there is a cave that is connecting into the ocean.
65.5 million years to evolve. You better figure that shit out.
But they would have noticed some sort of DNA that was not.
Maybe.
And
Ryan,
they would have.
I'm not sure why you're not all over this. This sits on a fault line, tectonic plates banging into each other. Why can't it cause kind of rip where the little monster could swim out and go, oh fuck this shit, right back down?
Is it a possibility? Yeah, but I think that they would have gotten some sort of DNA from it. Or would have picked up on something, but they didn't. So, is it a possibility? Maybe. I love
the fact that Ryan is arguing that it's not real. Normally, he'd be the one all over arguing that it's real, and I'd have to be the one going, "Nah, there ain't no chance. No DNA in the lake."
I would be, but like I said, the DNA is the one thing that makes me think that wait. I think it's probably an eel.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. I put my popcorn down for a second. That was delicious, by the way. Couple of good comments have come up that actually side kind of with Ryan. Mm-hmm. So, question number one: why isn't there more Nessies? Why wouldn't there need to be more to continue the line, to continue the breeding, continue the species, so to say? So there's that one. Number 2, it's a government cover-up. That's gotta be my favorite. It's gotta be my favorite.
Yes.
Gotta be my favorite. The other one was kind of back here. Sorry, we had quite a few comments come through while you were duking it out. This question is, we have 4K cameras in 2023. Why can't we get, in all caps, clearer, more definitive photos?
It's murky.
You are dealing with underwater. I'd be more inclined to say, why can't you get a better picture of Bigfoot than you can of something underwater?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think we should have some kind of technology to be able to see better. I agree. And I think it is a government cover-up. I'm absolutely with you. I'm telling you right now, Nessie and her little family live in the ocean. They come through the lock to get from point A to point B.
You are along the same lines as one of our comments. It says Loch Ness eel doesn't sound nearly as impressive as monster. That's what it comes down to, because it's all a tourism ploy.
Mm.
I think that's true and not true at the same time. I think that if you have never seen a giant eel, it's a fucking monster to you, like you don't, so saying that there's not necessarily a Loch Ness monster, Nessie might not be real, but there might be a monstrous sized eel.
I think that is probably absolutely what it is. I think there is a very large eel, and they do have, there is some very compelling old video that was shot on 35 millimeter film, whatever, of something moving through the water like this. Probably everybody's seen it. You cannot tell me that is not something that is undulating through that water.
A serpentine,
it's not it is not something that is like a log or something that is floating. There is movement. Now, some people say harbor eels, dolphins, all these things have been ascribed to have been making these waves or strange motions. But I'm telling you, I think that there absolutely is something big, probably several somethings big, for the sheer number of sightings every year.
Yeah.
And I think there's something there that we need to consider. Is it a dinosaur? Probably not.
No, it's hell no, it's not a damn dinosaur. Them damn things went
extinct. It might be. Anyway. Chickens still exist.
Yeah, and they're delicious.
They are.
Weren't they like the closest cousin to the raptor or something like that? I mean, look how far they devolved, in my opinion. But anyways,
they're still alive.
I mean, it would have to. We've been conditioned our entire lives to believe that it's the Loch Ness monster.
Singular.
Not that, there's not these gigantic eels that, happen to live in Loch Ness, that because there's so many sightings every single year that's what you're seeing. You're seeing multiple of these things come to the surface or break the water or do whatever, things like that. Now, Snuffleupagus running across the road and those claims and all that kind of stuff, I ain't got a clue for you right there, but I don't know.
like I said, somebody could have been hitting the bottle a little too much that night or something. I don't know.
That's true.
And then we know that homeboy on the motorcycle knew Malcolm Merriweather or whatever his name was.
Marmaduke Weatherall.
Merriweather.
Yeah. So
Marmaduke Weatherall.
I just like the fact that they're all probably sitting around. He's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and one of them sipping tea is like, oh, Marmaduke, you are a cod.
They're not English or Scottish. Well, actually, Marmaduke is English. He's from London.
I think my final thoughts on it is that I want to believe. I want to have hope to believe, because I love it whenever they're like, dude, we found this new species of that we never knew existed, but yet here it is. I think that's freaking cool. I want to believe that there is a creature out there that inhabits Loch Ness that we haven't discovered. I don't think it's what we have been conditioned to believe that it is. I don't think it's this huge dinosaur-looking monster. I think it's more or less likely an oversized, gigantic version of something that we are familiar with. We just haven't discovered that yet. But I hope that one day we do end up figuring out once and for all whether Nessie truly exists. And I think that that's what they should just call the damn species, the Nessies. It's the Nessies.
The Nessie eel? Yeah.
The Nessie eel. There you go. Done.
Ryan, final thoughts?
It's a giant eel. I mean, I think that's pretty much what it is. Or eels, because there needs to be a sustainable population. If people are having these sightings for this long of a period of time, obviously not a dinosaur. Those don't exist anymore. It's giant eels. So, is there a Loch Ness monster? Yeah, it's a giant eel. Is it Nessie? No.
Okay.
And my final thought is I think that there are so many mysteries about this lake, this loch, that we don't know about. It's 800 feet deep. It's dark. It's murky. There are things coming up from the depths of the ocean all the time that we are not familiar with until we actually see them catch one. I think Nessie's elusive. I think that the government bred her up, dropped her in there, takes her back out, breeds her out, puts a new one in every now and then. There we go. There's your conspiracy theory. I think that Nessie absolutely is real. Is she in the form that we know her as? Probably not. But boy, wouldn't it be fun to have a dinosaur?
It would be kind of cool. I'd love it.
Cool.
So, Blake, why don't you tell them everything they need to know?
Awesome. Well, yeah, couple announcements and things to get you go before we get signed off here. If you would like a chance to see us speak, we are going to be speaking July the 14th through the 16th at the Metacon in Kansas City, Missouri. Again, July 14th to the 16th. They are going to have a wonderful lineup of speakers, including us, John Zaffis, Andrea Perrin, including, I think it's 30,000 square feet of shopping and fun and healing stuff. There's a lot of it's like where the paranormal and metaphysics are crossing in this. So they're going to have all kinds of different people there. On top of that, we are about to release some new location dates for public investigation. So be on the lookout for our Eventbrite page. If you are not following us on Eventbrite, go follow us if you'd like to be on a public investigation with us, because as soon as we post those tickets, you will get a notification. And speaking of which, make sure you're following us across the board on all social channels. Because we use every single channel for different reasons. You're not going to get everything if you're just following us on one, because we got some special stuff that's coming out later on this year. You can find that link in the footer of our audio versions of this, or you can find it in our About Me or description sections on our profiles. Click on that. It'll take you to wherever you want to be, including those Metacon tickets and our public investigations, as well as our Patreon page, which is just $5 a month. You can instantly unlock over 100 extra Patreon exclusive videos, and child, tonight's was which include the pre and post broadcast, and tonight's pre-broadcast for you that are Patreon members. Be ready for tomorrow whenever that drops.
Earphones in before
lunch. Yes. So you are going to get all up-to-date information about EVP if you join our Patreon. Also, wherever you're watching or listening to us from, make sure that you review us. The more you review us, the more reach that we can get, the more content that we can bring you. And as always, if you have any comments or stories or questions that you'd like to ask us, those can be submitted to any of our social profiles through messengers, or you can send them to the evppod@gmail.com. That's THEEVPPOD@gmail.com.
Like, share, and subscribe. Well, we want to thank you guys for joining us on another episode of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. I'm Shelley Pruitt. My partners in the paranormal, Mr. Blake Smith and Mr. Ryan Roberts. I want to say thank you again. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday.